From Russia with Love is the second Sean Connery James Bond film. It came out in 1963. It is also directed by Terence Young, and we are covering it today on the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Golden Hour Film Podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, not guest host, Shane Mulvaney. Shane, how are you on this fine Monday of recording?
Yeah, pretty good. It's a bank holiday here in Ireland, so I've had the day off, which obviously doesn't happen that often, so it's nice just to chill out for the day and obviously get prepped for this as well. So, how are yourself?
Yeah, good. I did not have the day off, but and normally I do have Mondays off, so this was a weird Monday for me to be working, so I got these films in last night, but yes, we are doing a double recording again. Today, we are covering the second James Bond film. They had to go and double it and do it better. It is From Russia with Love. They had a $2 million budget, double the previous budget, which was, if you can do the maths, $1 million. And this was a monster success at the box office, doing nearly $80 million at the box office with a budget of $2 million. That is no mean feat in the 1960s. It is based on the novel by Ian Fleming of the same name. Sean Connery returns. They are expanding on the Spectre storyline. I really like that they are really expanding on this. Again, Sylvia Trench appears in this film. Again, another sort of recurring character in this series, I guess. It's just cool that they're doing a sequel, and even more so with the continuations as well. They really are making a film series about this. There's like a real sense of canon about this. It's also quite famously the last film that John F. Kennedy screened at the White House before he died.
Wow.
He was a big Bond fan. He had From Russia with Love, the book, in his top 10 books of all time list that he published before he passed away. And yeah, it is a pretty massive film with regards to 60s blockbusters. Shane, had you seen this before, and what did you think of it in a spoiler-free review?
No, like I said, I think in the previous episode, I'd only ever seen the Daniel Craig Bonds. So yeah, all these new Connery, this whole Connery arc that we're going to be doing is new to me, but I had a really good time. Same as Dr. No. I do think it's kind of sluggish at the start, apart from the great kind of courtyard scene where you have Robert Shaw's Spectre agent just like stalk some Bond kind of someone in disguise as Bond. Mm-hmm. Clearly he has this mission that like he's hella preparing for.
Yeah.
But other than that, I do think the opening is a bit of a sluggish, kind of slower start, certainly than Doctor No. But it's kind of the inverse to Doctor No in the sense that I think it starts slowly, but by the end it's really, really gripping. I think it really sticks the landing as opposed to what we talked about in Doctor No last week, where I think we were both of the opinion that Doctor No was great for the first hour or so, hour and 15 minutes or so, and then it does kind of, the final act does just kind of come out with a whimper, baby. So yeah, I had a really good time with this.
Yeah, I do think for people who are really into their classic films, classic Hitchcock, North by Northwest fans in particular, yeah. I think that this is definitely the most North by Northwest Bond film. There's a lot of similar recurring images and stuff.
Definitely.
Mainly the train, of course. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Connery's great. It opens with that cold open, as you said. Robert Shaw of Jaws acclaim, amongst other films, of course. He kills Bond in 1 minute 52 seconds, but turns out it's just an agent dressed as Bond who probably didn't realize that he was going to be murdered in this training drill. And that's a great way of like setting up his character, who is quite interesting in that he is one of the villains in the movie, but his whole thing, his shtick is that he's just in the background the whole time. He's just tailing Bond for the majority of the movie. But there are some great scenes and shots and stuff where you can see him in the background and he looks really ominous. One shot in particular where Bond meets someone at a train station after a plan goes south, and you can see him in the cart behind them just staring at them through the window. It's really great. His look, I would assume, inspired Tom Cruise in Collateral as well. Just
Yeah.
a very, very standout look there for the character. As well, another thing that I love, we don't see him on screen, we don't see his face, but this is our introduction to Blofeld as well. We just see him stroking his cat with his Spectre ring on, and in the credits after the fact, it is just a question mark because, as I said, we never see Blofeld's face in the film. Again, kind of adding to the Spectre lore because it's clear that Blofeld is quite high up in Spectre because he has other agents, number 3 and number 5, who are basically in charge of messing with Bond in retaliation to the whole Doctor No thing throughout this film. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. We also have Tatiana Romanova, who is definitely one of the more capable Bond girls. Also lacks any sort of pun in her name, which is interesting. You can tell this woman is serious. That being said, next week's Bond girl is probably the punniest name and the most famous Bond pun name of all time. She's more than capable of looking after herself, but we'll get to her next week. Also, shout out Odd Job for no reason. But yeah, for Much of a Love, Shane, going into it, what did you expect, having seen Doctor No, and how do you feel this fares in comparison to Doctor No?
Yeah, like I said, I think Doctor No was so good at kind of laying out very quickly who Bond is. Like obviously that famous poker scene at the start of that, and then you see him interacting with Moneypenny and you see him interacting with Q and M. So very very quickly, that script is very like very economical in how it actually gets about kind of all the bullet points that you need to know about Bond and his job very very quickly. So I kind of expected something similar here, and we do get that. We do get him interacting with, again, Moneypenny, MQ, all these characters that we obviously know now across number of different adaptations, obviously. But yeah, I was hoping that they would go more into the Spectre down that kind of whole rabbit hole, that whole organization, and yeah, so I was very pleased when very very quickly it becomes clear that's where they are going with it. I also like how they, like you mentioned, they do just rank. So the Blofeld is, they refer to as number 1 in this. They don't actually ever, I don't think, refer to him as Blofeld.
Mm-hmm.
So he's number 1. So you can actually see the kind of hierarchical kind of ranking of each of these Spectre members. So basically, like, the higher number they have, or the lower number they have, I should say, is the higher rank. So that's a good way of kind of again spelling out very very quickly kind of that James Bond is someone on the radar of the highest people in Spectre, and he has become a very serious problem to them very very quickly. So again, it just kind of ratchets up the kind of stakes again very very quickly, because he's trying to obviously outmaneuver this massive international globe spanning criminal organization. So yeah, I think from that point of view, it just did everything I kind of wanted it to do. Goes into the whole spectre of it all, while also still kind of Bond is still Bond. He's still like, there's all the Bond girls, Bond women. There's still Bond is still cracking one-liners. He still has his vodka martinis and stuff. So you have everything you want from it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so Kronstein, who is number 5, is this chess grandmaster, and he has put in motion the plan which sets up the film. There's a MacGuffin called a Lecter, which they're going to basically suggest that Romanova is going to defect and hand the Lecter over, but she only wants James Bond. They will then use Romanova to get into Bond's head, lure him into false sense of security, etc., and, do him in. But yeah, things don't go quite according to plan to them, because well, he's James Bond, It's funny as well because in this film with the hat toss and everything,
Yeah.
he does the hat toss, but it doesn't impress M at all. M pulls him in. This is much more serious for M than the previous movie. M explains, and it's kind of funny as well because specters say that this is exactly what's going to happen. M is like, this is clearly a trap, and Bond is like, yes, this is clearly a trap. And then they both relish the challenge of like getting into the trap and getting out of the trap, which is exactly what Spectre were relying on. They were like, it's so obvious that it's a trap with Romanova defecting, that because they're English, they're going to see a challenge in accepting this trap just so that they can get out of it and maybe get out of it with the Lecter. He shows Bond a picture of Romanova, and quite hilariously, as soon as Bond sees a picture of Romanova, he instantly accepts this mission. And then on his way out, he signs the picture of Romanova from Russia with love and gives it to Moneypenny. And he heads to Istanbul, which is where Romanova is based, and where Ali Karim Bey is, who is a fun character.
Yeah.
He's basically Bond's guy in Turkey. He knows Turkey like the back of his hand. He has all sorts of fingers and all sorts of pies. His sons are everywhere, whether they are biological or not is yet to be seen, because my god, there is a lot of them. But yeah, his sons are everywhere looking out for him, doing jobs for him. He's also in with the Romani gypsy group, who are settled nearby, and uses them quite a lot for certain tasks or whatever. And he also has like canalways and stuff that he has access to, where he can basically spy on the Russians. So he's a man with a lot of information, is Ali Karim Bey, and he is for want of a better word, he's basically the Bond sidekick of this film. Even though he is like a very high up man, he's not a sidekick. He narratively kind of inadvertently becomes the Bond sidekick for the film.
He's essentially the Quarrel of this story.
Yeah, pretty much. He is this film's Quarrel, but he has a lot more. Actually, to be fair, Quarrel has a lot of information about Crab Key and all that. So yeah, like they are actually quite similar.
Yeah, like Quarrel's not a government kind of a government operative, if you want to call it that, but he does obviously have a lot of knowledge about the local area, which is essentially the kind of function that Ali Karim Bey performs in this script.
Yeah, so we get kind of a rehash of the tailing from the airport scene from Dr. No, but it's funny this time. It's one of Bay's sons, and he picks up Bond, and Bond points out that they're being tailed, and he's like, yeah, no, I know. They're a bunch of Bulgarians who work for the Russians, and he like says their license plates without looking and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's very friendly. And it's kind of just almost like an unwritten agreement that they just tail each other back and forth. These Bulgarians who work for the Russians, and these Turks who are working for MI6, I guess, or at least in this case, they are going to be working with MI6. There's a whole international incident on our hands because tailing the Bulgarians who are tailing Bond is Robert Shaw's character, and he is a nasty piece of work whenever he comes across anyone who is getting in the way of his mission. And eventually, both in two separate instances, both these Bulgarian fellas meet their demise at the hands of this agent. Who is a pretty ominous figure. We've a few villains in this. Obviously Robert Shaw's agent character is great. We've Kleb as well, number 3. She's a bit more caricaturish, I would say. She literally at the end attacks Bond, and she gets in by dressing up as an old maid and then pulling a gun on him, which is pretty funny. We have Kronsine, of course, who is a chess grandmaster, who is number 5 at Spectre. We have off-screen Blofeld, who is pulling all the strings in the background. We've a bunch of hitmen throughout the film who Bond takes most of them out. We've a fun scene as well at the Romani gypsy campsite, where basically these two women are having a fight to the death over a man. It gets interrupted by the Russians, who start attacking everyone. And then in the background as well, we have Robert Shaw's character with a sniper rifle who's basically picking off people who he thinks are actually going to kill Bond because he needs Bond alive for now. It's great. There's a few fun scenes as well. There's a scene where after that, Ali Karim Bey, who seems to be under the impression that the Russians are trying to kill him, and Bond go after the guy who was in charge of the Russians, and he, through having people in the streets and stuff who know everything about everyone, know that this Russian guy's escape route is through this giant movie poster on the side of his building, and he escapes through the mouth. So as he's escaping through the mouth, they just sniper rifle him and he falls to his death. But yeah, there's lots of fun, colourful scenes, shall we say. Lots of colourful characters. It's a fairly jam-packed blockbuster film.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be a Bond film without, obviously, Bond kind of, having some pleasure along the way. So there's the scene where he walks into the room with Tanya just lying, shall we say, in a state of undress on the bed. That's shot very funnily, and then he actually gets Tanya talking about the Lecter on tape, and she it's not the most subtle. She's obviously trying to do her job by getting to bring her to London, and she's trying to essentially seduce him there as well. There's a funny scene where we cut back to London, and we see back to the headquarters, and we see M and a bunch of other agents sitting around listening to this.
A bunch of like somewhat elderly, very official looking agents.
Yeah, and Moneypenny is there taking notes, and as soon as obviously this starts to happen, M just says, Moneypenny, please make yourself. Essentially, that's Moneypenny.
She says, "Oh, am I as exciting as these Western girls?" And Bond's response is, "Well, there was this one time me and M went to Tokyo," and then it cuts to M, and he just shuts the whole thing off. Then he's like, "That's too far. That's too far." Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but then Bond blows up the Russian HQ and actually steals the Lecter with Tanya. So essentially, the plan of Spectre is well on kind of track. This is what they wanted to happen all along. Yeah. They've essentially maneuvered the situation. So they get on the train, and the Russians are in pursuit on the train, but also so is the character who passes himself off as an agent called Red. So there's this whole thing where they're gonna MI6 are going to send an agent called Red to help out Bond and Tanya on the train, and Robert Shaw's character obviously is aware of this, so he passes himself off as Red, and then shit starts to go down.
Yeah, turns out Ali Karim Bey has been murdered in his cart. He was literally minutes away from them escaping. They were going to escape through the dining cart and get to Athens, which would then have their plane home, basically, with the Lecter and everything. But no, the Russian who was tailing them on the train kills Bey, but Bey also kills him. And Red, Robert Shaw's character, passes himself off as Red, even though that's not who he actually is. And basically the whole plan starts to get flipped on its head. You can tell at this point that Tanya Romanova, she is definitely more infatuated with Bond than she initially thought she would be. She's already kind of hinting at maybe she's actually not pretending to be into Bond. Maybe this isn't all part of the plan anymore. Maybe she really does want to escape with him and the Lecter, but more importantly with him. Whereas Bond is still fairly steadfast on the L mission, because he's also aware that it is a trap, and that she, at least to begin with, was pretending to be into him.
Yeah.
But he's also unknowingly kind of falling in love with her, but in a James Bond way. He's falling in love with her, but don't expect her to be in the next film if he does. That kind of James Bond falling in love with her. Anyway, long story short, Red, Bond and Tanya go for dinner as they discuss the plan. Red spikes Tanya's drink. They all go back to the room. Tanya collapses, and Red lures Bond into a false sense of security, and then we get the train fight sequence, which is very fun. It's well shot as well, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's funny because Red calls Bond old man, and that just pisses Bond off so much, God damn it, we're only 2 films in and he's already getting called old.
You know, I love how
But
this is...
eventually,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I love how this was actually set up because obviously Red lays out the master plan, etc., which we already knew about. But then how Bond actually gains the upper hand for a second is there's a suitcase that Q gave Bond, which is kind of essentially gimmicked that Bond can actually like get the upper hand on an assailant should the opportunity arise. Obviously, Red isn't to know this, so actually Bond is trying to pretend that like Red, he's essentially trying to like goad Red into opening the suitcase, and that doesn't happen. So eventually Bond manages to like work out the scenario just to get just in time to get the kind of suitcase open and stuff like that. But then Red, there's a struggle. Red actually looks like he's gonna get the better of Bond then as well, which is actually interesting because like a lot of action heroes even nowadays, a lot of action stars, let's say, don't actually like kind of being seen as if they're going to lose a fight. It's quite weird behavior, let's be honest, because it makes you want to like root for your action hero more if they're vulnerable. But anyway, some people don't have great instincts. But yeah, it's actually quite interesting then that Connery didn't really have that kind of an issue. He's like, yeah, screw it, like if it's good for the story, which it was, that's what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And eventually Bond stabs Red to death and then calls him old man. Which, get him, Bond. Eventually then Bond and Romanova escape, and then we get a really fun helicopter scene where basically these 2 Spectre agents are in this tiny little yellow helicopter, and they're just throwing grenades from the helicopter at Bond's truck, which he's commandeered, with Romanova in the back. Eventually Bond gets out because he's like, oh yeah, she will literally just die if one of them actually does hit the truck. She has no protection. So he gets out of the truck and does a runner to lure them away, and then we get these really fun shots then of the helicopter just swooping down and almost hitting him, then throwing grenades at him over and over and over again until eventually he manages to get himself a little bit of space where he can pull out a gun where he shoots the guy with the grenades. He drops his grenade into the helicopter by accident. Helicopter explodes. They then also take a boat, which is pretty funny because the guy whose truck they commandeered, they just take him with him, and then thankfully Bond unties his hands before he then kicks him off the boat, and the 2 go off to Venice, where it's a Bond film. They do their thing. It's also kind of funny. I like the ending, which we'll touch on in a second, but it's kind of funny how good they are in this film at addressing their, like, they will set up a joke very early in the film or a scene very early in the film and address it, such as the suitcase.
Yeah.
And another one is the first time that Bond and Tanya meet, they skip all the foreplay. They just get straight to it. And then we can see that behind a false mirror that the Spectre agents are recording them to use as a whole blackmail scheme where they will make it look as if she blackmailed him, he killed her, then killed himself, and that's how they get rid of Bond. But the film ends with him finding the sex tape, like the actual tape of it, and he strings it up and kind of looks at it, and she's like, oh, what's that? And he just chucks it into the canal in Venice. It's great. But it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of big action set pieces which I quite enjoyed. The one at the Romany Gypsy Camp is great. The way to Venice has this big fiery boat chase sequence as well, where Bond blows everyone to fucking shit. He just knocks a load of petrol cans into the sea and then lights them all on fire. It's great. Everyone just explodes. One guy even just, fair play to the stuntman, one guy just catches fire, like his whole body's on fire and he has to jump into the sea. There's a lot of good action in this for a blockbuster, just considering as well, because we talk about old movies on this podcast, that's the whole thing, and sometimes we do refer to new movies as well for context. And things like that, the big action set pieces, all of it being practical. I don't want to sound like too much of a snob or anything, but like it just looks better. Like these stunt work in this film, the explosions, the fire, the action, even just being able to see that Sean Connery is the one who's doing the judo throw every once in a while. Yeah, it cuts to a stunt double every once in a while, but like you can see a lot of the fight sequences, you can see Sean Connery's face or the villain who he's fighting. And a lot of that is missing from modern action blockbusters, especially with just green screen. Everything, 9 times out of 10, things on green screen look terrible. Just these big practical, and because they have the bigger budget, lavish set pieces where you're in Istanbul or you're in Venice or you're just in the middle of the sea or you're on a train. It just looks so great, and it helps these films because it's funny, the way they speak and the way they dress might look dated to you. You might look at it and be like, oh, this is from the 60s. But as far as an actual film goes, it looks better than any, well, not any, but it looks better than 90% of films made today that are set in those time periods because of the practicality of them.
No, I totally agree. Like, there's a film from last year, if we're going to mention, kind of obviously newer films. The Fall Guy, I don't know if you've seen it, David Leitch, who's obviously an action director, but it's like, essentially, it's because I think he's actually used to be Keanu Reeves' stuntman, him and Chad Stahelski. They were the stuntmen for Keanu Reeves on The Matrix. They've since gone on to make, they co-directed the first John Wick together, and then Chad Stahelski went on to make the rest of the John Wicks. And David Leitch went off and did
amazing film series.
Yeah, amazing.
Who hasn't seen them? This is an excuse for you to watch the John Wick movies, by the way.
Yeah, like if we're going to talk about practical action filmmaking, like, and it's not just them, it's the Mission Impossible movies. I'm not going to go through a whole thing, but essentially that film is like a love letter to action movies and to stuntmen in particular, stunt men and women, stunt performers, because again, you can have all the green screen you want, but if you don't have people doing this stuff for real, essentially, it's gonna look so much worse. So yeah, just to piggyback off your kind of whole obviously argument there, I definitely agree 100%.
It's also a very underappreciated art is stunt work. It's something that very rarely gets recognized at award shows. Luckily, it's something that should be addressed more. The I believe it's the Dead Meat podcast, who are fantastic. I literally will watch every episode that they put out when it comes up to Halloween. They are very good for fighting the fight of stuntmen, stunt women deserve to be awarded much more than they get. But another example is Death Proof as well. The whole second half of Death Proof.
Zoe Bell.
Zoe Bell, who is a stunt woman in most of Tarantino's films, basically gets just a half a film to show off how much of a fucking badass she is. But she also gets to play the character, which is great. Love that film. Zoe Bell's an absolute hero. But shout out to the stunt work, the practicality, because it makes films timeless, in my opinion.
Yeah, Tarantino actually talks about one of the big car chase stunts that they have in Death Proof, and she's essentially like, there's just a wire holding her back from, like, if that car veers off in any direction, either which way, she would die. Like, literally, she would die. So it's like the amount of that, it's incredible, kind of obviously the bravery they have. But luckily, I think they are going to start rewarding stunt performing in the Oscars. From 2027, I think, is the first year it's going to be in. So it's a long overdue. I think there's been a massive industry-wide clamour for it to happen, and I don't really know why it's taking this long, but better late than never, I suppose.
I also want to shout out in this film, in particular, because it's his first appearance in the Bond franchise, Desmond Llewellyn, who would play Q for the next 30-something years. He played Q right up until halfway through the Brosnan Bond films, and he gets a great send-off in that film as well, which, funnily enough, I actually haven't seen his final Bond film. The only thing that I've seen from that film is Q's send-off, which is great. But Desmond Llewellyn plays Q in every single Bond film every single canon Bond film from Russia with Love all the way up to 1997 with Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah,
is that it? Yes, Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies is Desmond Llewellyn's final one before he passed away. But a real, just for the Bond fans in particular, a real hero of sort of the Bond franchise, Desmond Llewellyn. We will get to see his lair next week, which is great. But just seeing him on screen for the first time is cool, and From Russia with Love. But yeah, then they go bigger with the Q scene next week when we get the iconic bulletproof Aston Martin. Shout out Odd Job. But yeah, From Russia with Love. Shane, what you reckon? Any
Yeah.
use?
No, yeah, it's definitely a lot of use. I really enjoyed it. Very good follow up. Obviously, after we've seen so many franchises down the years where you have a great opening film and then it just kind of, yeah, it's decline in quality. Let's say. But no, I definitely don't. I think this is a very worthy follow up to Doctor No. Like I said, I think it's interesting in that maybe it's takes a little bit of time to get into its groove maybe, whereas Doctor No is great off the bat. But then I definitely think the final act is a lot better than that Doctor No was. Definitely clicks into gear. For everything from the train sequence onwards, it's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Obviously, where he kills Red, and then you have the whole boat sequence, and then you get to Italy and Venice, and then everything with Kleb, and just yeah, the way it expands out. I know this is like a lot. I'm sure a lot of to do with the novels as well, but the way it expands the mythology of Spectre as well
Yeah.
is exactly what I wanted this follow up film to do. I was hoping it would do, and it definitely does that. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Really enjoyed it, and yeah, definitely a worthy follow up.
Yeah. Again, same as Doctor No. Uh, Second time round, I definitely preferred it. First time I watched both of these films, I gave both of them 3.5 stars, and once again, I am upping From Rush with Love to a 4-star rating. I really, really enjoyed this. It's darker than some of the other Bond films, especially compared to some of the Roger Moore ones. It's gritty. I just think Robert Shaw's character has such an iconic look about him. It really, really reminds me of Collateral, which is a fantastic film as well. I really like Connery in this. I stand by again that he was the best at playing Bond. And to be honest, because I've also already seen Goldfinger, because as I said at the start, we're doing a double recording. Yeah, I'm starting to think that maybe Connery has the best catalogue on average. I'm not sure. Daniel Craig's got some bangers. That's the thing. But I love Connery as Bond. I think he's fantastic. It's as you said, it's everything a sequel should be with regards to expanding the universe, expanding the mythology of Spectre. We even learn about Smesh or Smersh, which is some other side villain organization. No one really cares about them, but they also exist. Like, it's not just Spectre. Spectre are the best at what they do. Yeah, Desmond Llewellyn is great. I think Natasha Romanova, or Tanya, is a great Bond girl, played by Daniela Bianchi. Very much enjoyed her. I thought she was good. I thought she played the struggle between the mission and falling in love with James Bond quite well, because these films can lean into Bond can sleep with whoever he wants whenever he wants. And this is the first one where, as well, shout out Connery for it, but Connery's kind of like, oh, if part of the mission is that I have to seduce her, what if she's just not into me? Like, what do we do from there? And M's kind of like, you're James Bond. But it is fun that kind of happens, where Bond is like, oh, what if she doesn't actually like me? And even still, when she sees the picture of him, because obviously we see that he accepts the mission straight away. When she sees the picture of him, she's like, oh, I'd have to meet him first before I know if I fancy him. And it's like, oh,
good for you.
yeah. But no, she plays the sort of moral struggle very well, because throughout the film, Spectre are threatening this woman's life, so she kind of has to do the L job. And as well, I find it interesting. It sets up Blofeld as just ice cold, because whenever the plan goes awry, it leans into the idea that he's going to let Number 5 dictate what happens next. But then they just kill him off, Number 5, Kronstein, with a poisoned hidden blade in a shoe. And Blofeld basically says to Kleb, Number 3, Rosa, this is your last chance. if you want to end up like him, no problem, but I need you to basically spend the last 15 minutes of this movie fucking up James Bond's life, please and thanks. And it really shows that Spectre is such a cutthroat organization, literally. Like all of these people underneath Blofeld, it kind of adds a layer to their character because they're the evil Bond villain, but actually they die if they don't do what they have to do to James Bond. So it is a dog eat dog world, which is so funny that I've just remembered that one of my friends thought that expression was "it's a doggy dog world," as in like DOGGY. I don't know why that just came into my head, but he thought that's what that meant. Yeah, great. But shit at Darren. But anyway, it's a great way of setting up Spectre. Is just this ruthless, terrifying organization that once you're in, you can't get out, and these people will stop at nothing to kill James Bond. From Rush With Love, it is a very, very worthy sequel. Because that's the thing, really, when it comes to sequels and spin-offs and stuff. Are they worthy of actually existing? The answer for From Rush With Love is a definite yes, in my opinion. Definitely. And so we'll talk about next week and next week's episode what we've watched recently. But for now, as we said last week, we're going to talk about some films from the 1960s that we maybe want to cover on the podcast, ones that we've seen, ones that we haven't. And of course, if you have some films from the 1960s that you would like to see or hear, because our Spotify numbers have definitely improved in the last while, like a lot, which is great, please let us know. On Spotify, comment on YouTube, comment on Instagram, feel free to send us a message. I think you should cover this, because we are more than open to some of your suggestions. We love hearing the suggestions of just films to watch anyway, because I don't know about you, Shane, but like most of the films, if not all the films that get suggested in the comments, I do add straight to the watch list and then eventually get around to. So definitely. I really do appreciate all the recommendations that you guys come up with. But Shane, maybe a few films from the 60s that you have seen, a few films that you haven't seen, and why you'd like to cover them on the podcast, or why you think they'd be good episodes of the podcast.
Yeah, I think The Graduate is one that I have seen recently, but that's a great film. I think The Hustler is one that I would definitely love to get into.
Oh, savage film. Yeah,
like,
absolutely love it. I think we could tie in some sort of Scorsese. If Scorsese has another release, I think The Hustler could definitely be tied into that month.
Yeah, because
if we do some sort of like Scorsese adjacent month.
Definitely, because you want to talk about worthy sequels. The Colour of Money had no right to be as good as it was. 25 years
savage
later.
Film.
Brilliant film. Finally got Paul Newman his Oscar as well. So shout out to Colour of Money, and obviously, hopefully, eventually when we get around to The Hustler.
Yeah, definitely will.
Yeah, 100%. From the 1960s, I would love to cover, if we're talking about Billy Wilder films, there's a film that he made called 123, which is made the year after. So he had this run where he did Witness for the Prosecution, Some Like a Hawk.
Savage.
Yeah, The Apartment, and then he made a film called 123, which rounds off this incredible run form. It's this kind of, it's very much a comedy for sure. It's a Billy Wilder comedy where it's essentially a takedown of capitalism and communism all in one film. Like, it's not politically kind of, doesn't take any sides whatsoever. It follows a Coca-Cola executive played by James Cagney. James Cagney, the Billy Wilder film, by the way, in case if you ever wanted to know what that looks like, this is your film. He talks at a mile a minute, this character. It's just the most Jimmy Cagney kind of character. He's so funny in this film. Essentially, he wants one of his bosses. He has to kind of mold this Russian communist character into being pretending to be this capitalist bastion of capitalism, you want to call it that. So it's this whole clash of ideologies set right in the middle of during the Cold War. So you have this whole competing ideology. It's in a way that only Billy Wilder can do. Very, very, very funny film, and like I said, just a great way to kind of round off that kind of what to my mind is my favourite run of kind of form from Billy Wilder, and probably one of my favorite one forms any director's ever done.
Yeah, I'll jump in the meantime
Yeah,
with a few that I've seen from the 60s that I think would make for good episodes. First and foremost, I'm gonna name two films that aren't necessarily my absolute favorite films in the world. One I do like, but they're definitely films worth touching on. First is The Birds, which I think is an interesting film because it's one of Hitchcock's most famous films, and yet very few people have it in their like top 20 of his filmography. It's a fascinating film. The behind the scenes is fascinating. Everything that happened between Hitchcock and Tippi Hedren, and as well Breakfast at Tiffany's, because again, Breakfast at Tiffany's is an interesting film to talk about in this day and age because, for the most part, it is a phenomenal Audrey Hepburn rom-com, but it is horrendously dragged down by some of the racist comedy in inverted commas, massive inverted commas there, from Mickey Rooney, where he plays a character of a different race. I'll just leave it at that. But it's an interesting one because everything outside of those truly skin-crawlingly bad and offensive scenes is really great. And it just goes to show that, like, yeah, with a art form like cinema, not everything's going to age well. Really isn't. And this is a prime example of a absolute classic that doesn't necessarily age well at all in certain regards. Also, a film that I just think would be great crack to cover and a great one for people to see for the first time is Charade. Charade is so
Great
fun.
Yeah, great.
So great. Just a really enjoyable classic film, which is somehow not a Hitchcock film. Again, starring Audrey Hepburn. She is fantastic in it. Love it. Of course, because it's been referenced before in the comments that it's funny that I name dropped this film a few times. I fucking love Batman 66. It is so camp. It is so ridiculous. It is so on the nose. It is hilarious. I'm dying to go back and watch the series to see if the series is as funny. Because, yeah, Adam West as Batman is amazing. It's a tonally entirely different thing to any other Batman live action film you will ever see. Watching Batman 66 and then Robert Pattinson's The Batman back to back would be an amazing double feature, just to see the two polar ends of how a character can be. As well, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, have to do it eventually.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, we haven't done many, if any, westerns really, other than Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and The Good, the Bad and the Ugly is one of the all-time best. I'm still waiting on the Arrow 4K of it that was delayed. I have the other two, Fistful of Dollars and, yes, a few dollars more. I have both of them on the 4K, but I'm holding off to watch them because I haven't seen either of those for the first time. I'm holding off to watch them until The Good, the Bad and the Ugly comes, and then I'll watch the three of them. Speaking of westerns, Django is one of my favorite films of the 60s. So pulpy, so bloody, so gritty, so cool, so integral to filmmakers like Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, etc. Just an absolute badass who's actually cool. It's funny to see a character who's meant to be cool, who is also actually cool. Because often when you try and make your character cool, they turn out to be the biggest loser ever if you're trying too hard. Whereas with the character of Django, Franco Nero's performance, he's just so effortlessly cool. And I'll leave you with two more. I'll go two totally different ones. Rosemary's Baby from Roman Polanski, who was unfortunately a phenomenal director, but a truly terrible person. And Rosemary's Baby is a horrifying film, but absolutely incredible film. Lead performance is spine tingling, and yeah, I'll go with Her Honor Majesty's Secret Service because shout out to George Lazenby. for conning the world into thinking he was an actor. What about a few that you haven't seen, Shane?
Yeah, I'm just going to mention one more that I have seen that I should have mentioned at the time. In the Heat of the Night is an absolutely brilliant film. Obviously,
Nice.
all about kind of racial tension. Sidney Poitier, an amazing performance from him. Yeah, definitely would love to get around to that at some stage. But as far as ones that I haven't seen, you actually mentioned The Good, Bad and the Ugly, which I was going to mention. But I would love to cover Failsafe, which is a Sidney Lumet film.
Oh, such a good film. So great.
The
big board, but it's actually serious.
Yeah, it does look like, every time I see a still image of that, it looks like the war room scene from Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah. It has the big board, but the context is terrifying. Henry Fonda is amazing as well in that film.
Scandalously, I've never seen 2001: A Space Odyssey. I know, sorry.
What?
Yeah, I've never seen that.
That would be a difficult film to cover on the podcast, but it would be a challenge, and I would accept the challenge. I've seen it a couple of times. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, but it would be. You'd really want a good night's sleep before that recording. You want to be fresh for that recording.
The original West Side Story. I'd love to get around to that because I really enjoyed the Spielberg remake. And there's some really good songs in there. Definitely, I'm quite partial to a musical when it's done well. To Kill a Mockingbird, obviously starring a boy Gregory Peck. I haven't seen it. I just feel like
I hope that movie doesn't suck, because if we cover To Kill a Mockingbird and it turns out that that's not good and Gregory Peck flops again, like, God, we do not do that guy justice ever.
No, he's, apart from Roman Holiday, I feel like we just picked every bad film of his. The poor guy, because he's such a good actor. I've seen so many good films with him in it and some really good performances, but there's obviously a bunch of poor guy. We need to start doing more to kind of save his clear his name and save his name. There we go. Yeah, I'd love to check out Easy Rider. I know you've seen that.
Oh, I fucking love that movie.
Dennis Hopper. Yeah, I'd love to go and see that, or see that for the podcast. I would love to check out the original Oliver. Again, talk about a musical. Directed by Carol Reed. Who, if I'm not mistaken, he did The Third Man, did he not? He did, didn't he?
He most certainly did, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, return to the podcast potentially for him. And if just a couple more that I'll mention. Cool Hand Luke, which I think you've also seen.
Oh my, I love Cool Hand Luke. It is so great. Paul Newman is amazing. The music is amazing. And he eats eggs.
Yeah, check that out. And do you know what? One more that I have seen that I just think maybe because of events in the world, it might be worth getting around to eventually. It's actually one of the films we've seen together, Battle of Algiers. I think we saw.
Yeah, we studied that in college. Yeah.
Yeah, great film about war, obviously. And yeah, there's obviously things happening in the world, so I think could be quite timely to cover that because there's definitely some parallels. So yeah.
Yeah, a few that I haven't seen that I'd like to cover. I'd love to cover a Stanley Kubrick film as well. I'd love to cover a Spartacus.
Yeah.
It just sounds like an absolute epic. We've covered a few very long films already on the podcast. Like, we've covered a few 3-hour films on the podcast already, or more than 3-hour films on the podcast. So Spartacus, I think, will be a good addition to that sort of subsection of the podcast. Another long film I'd like to do, which is even longer than 3 hours, is Dr. Zhivago, directed by the great David Lean. I would love to cover The Sound of Music. Criminally, I have never seen The Sound of Music. I'm sorry, everyone. I'd love to cover Kess, which I've never seen before.
I was going to say that as well, yeah.
It is a film from Ken Loach, which gets name dropped in every Criterion Closet video, I feel. Every Letterboxd Top 4 video. It's a film that I really want to see. There's no excuse to why I haven't, but I really want to cover Kess. Talking about films that I think would be good episodes of the podcast, I think the Frank Sinatra Ocean's 11 would be a fun one to cover. Yeah. I think that the non-canon Casino Royale would be a fun movie to cover. I think that am I right in saying that Who's That Knocking at My Door is Martin Scorsese's first feature film?
It is, yeah. First feature film. Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting movie to cover on the podcast, a 60s Scorsese film. I can't imagine it would get very many views, but who cares? I still think it would be a fun one to cover. I'm only learning now that I definitely do not have enough films on my watch list from the 60s on Letterboxd. Oh, Cape Fear. I've not seen Cape Fear.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I'd love to cover Cape Fear. Haven't seen that. El Dorado, I haven't seen. I'd like to cover that. True Grit, I haven't seen. I'd like to cover that. Bonnie and Clyde, I haven't seen. I'd like to cover that. Shout out to Maple Street Movies, Nathan Hale from Maple Street Movies, because he loves the film Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and has very much hammered home that is a film everyone should see. So I will definitely like to cover that on the podcast. That might even be a good film to maybe get him back on the podcast, because I know that is like literally one of his favorite films ever. So I don't know if in future you have any interest in seeing Nathan Hale return to the podcast, feel free to hit him up and suggest that we cover that film. And last but not least, I'll leave you with one more, and I will say Andrei Rublev, because we haven't done a Tarkovsky film. Tarkovsky, similar to 2001: A Space Odyssey, you want to have a good night's sleep before you watch his films, because they are a bit of a mental marathon. But so far from what I've seen of Tarkovsky's films, I have been absolutely in awe every time, and I haven't seen Andrei Rublev, which, yeah, I don't know if we're going to cover it on the podcast anytime soon, so I might just go ahead and watch it anyway. But yeah, that is another one that I think would be a fun one to cover on, well, maybe not necessarily a fun one to cover, but a film to cover on the podcast. Actually, I'll leave you with one more. Last but not least, or should I say last but least, Manos: The Hands of Fate, which is widely considered by many people to be the worst movie ever made. I have seen it. It's terrible. It's so bad. And who knows, maybe if one day the podcast falls on a Friday, April 1st, we might cover either Manos: The Hands of Fate or the Ed Wood film Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is actually like not terrible. It's actually quite fun, and Bela Lugosi's in it. But yeah, who knows? Maybe one April Fool's Day we'll cover one of them. In the meantime, that was the episode of the Golden Hour Film Podcast where we covered From Russia with Love. Next week is Goldfinger. Shane, describe Goldfinger in one word.
Odd job.
Shout out to Odd Job. We'll see you all next week for Goldfinger. Thank you very much. I've been Harry Bailey.
I've been Shem Mahoney.
Goodbye.